Mangarara Station covers 610 hectares in southern Hawke's Bay. Owners Greg and Rachel Hart describe it as a conventional sheep and beef farm in transition. They're creating profitability through diversification and some bold farm management techniques. Greg explains.
The farm's been traditionally running quite a large flock of breeding ewes and finishing lambs where we can, and also just trading beef cattle. And now we're transitioning through to put in a little dairy shed, so milking 23 cows each day. We've reared 80 calves with those cows, and at the moment we're feeding over 100 pigs, basically a diet of pasture and milk with a bit of maize added to that. We've also got a couple of portable hen houses on the farm now, with about 80 hens in each house. And we've got some lodge accommodation, which is all about connecting people back to the land and their food. One of the things that got me thinking about this was the New Zealand economy based on pastoral agriculture, and then the understanding that that pastoral production is based on bringing in largely phosphate fertilisers from the other side of the planet. And that system is only going to work while we've got cheap, abundant fossil fuels to dig it up from over there and truck it and ship it and truck it and process it. And it's just quite what I see as an unsustainable system. And so we've been on a journey trying to find alternatives. Diversity is the key to resilience, and so we've brought that in with planting 105,000 trees in the last 7 or 8 years. And a lot of that's with the help of the Air New Zealand Environment Trust. But we've also planted shade and shelter and nutrient cycling trees and drought fodder. The grazing system here is quite different to the farms around us, and of course the first thing you notice is we've got really tall pastures, and that's something that is a system called holistic grazing, and that's been devised by a man from Zimbabwe called Alan Savory. And this is set up to mimic what the big herds of buffalo or bison used to operate on the Great Plains of America or Africa, where there was massive mobs of these ruminant animals, but they were constantly moving and constantly going into tall pasture. And as they travel around, they're also trampling the pasture to the ground, they're pooing and peeing, and over the millennia that's built some of the richest, most fertile soils on the planet, and we're trying to mimic what nature's done. A traditional farmer might say, look at all this pasture that you're wasting, and I'd reply that waste is a human concept. Nature doesn't do waste, everything is part of a system. And so also people that are a good gardener know that it's great to have a mulch down over your soil, and particularly here in Hawke's Bay where we get these really dry summers, and you can already see the hills are sort of starting to turn brown now in early December. We have this tall pasture taking it through into the summer, so as of right now I know I've still got 120 days grazing in front of me, and as long as we get our autumn rains, we're set for the summer. It's part of a system which goes on to being part of something bigger called regenerative agriculture, which is all about building soils and particularly sequestering carbon into the soil, which is the largest carbon store on the planet is in our soils. And I believe that if we're going to fight climate change, then the biggest solution we have is getting that carbon out of the atmosphere and back into the soil. The performance of these animals is right up there. We perhaps drop a little bit through that late summer period through the pasture quality, but I guess potentially other farms around here might not have any grass at that time of year. It's a decision that we've made that we do have grazing animals on, and dairy heifers are part of it. We do have our own beef stock as well, but having to get those animals through the summer on a May to May contract means that we have to keep feeding them. They do very well through the winter, spring and into the summer. They'll be doing in excess of 1 kg per head per day at the moment. But the thing is, this system doesn't perhaps suit young stock. So all the animals, we don't have any calves on the summer on the farm over the summer, so it is older stock, and so older stock or cows and calves suit the system. Clover grows through this. This is just like a mulch on the ground, and sometimes at the end of autumn things might be looking a bit scruffy and a bit of tag around, and at that time we do have a mob of cows on the farm that can go around and do a bit of a clean up job, but generally it's all tidied up come the end of winter and back into fresh growth in the spring. The stock have probably been out of here for 10 days to 2 weeks. We're bringing in still some basic fertilisers. We're still on this journey, and I guess we still are putting on some phosphates and using quite a lot of lime locally. But part of this journey is also trying to be more self-sufficient in nutrients. We've got rather large worm farms, and it's trying to develop a system where we can actually be putting some of that worm juice onto the soil and the pastures, and I guess fine-tuning exactly some of the mineral requirements, just to really get some, perhaps more about the balance of the minerals and ratios as opposed to absolute numbers of Olsen peas, etc. We've got 40 hectares of peat, and this is some of the heavier peat soils which go underwater each year once or twice, and we've got rolling country and up into the steeper hill country, so it's all different, but basically this is what we're trying to achieve. I wouldn't dare criticise other farmers and what they're doing, and just the realisation has come to me that basically every mouthful of food we take is coming from a system that's either degrading the planet, reducing the quality of soils and having harmful effects on the water, or having to cut down more trees to make more land. Whereas you can actually eat very well from a food production system that's regenerating the land, and so what we're trying to do is obviously build soils. And soil is your first and best natural filter of water, so water quality comes from good, healthy farms. And then also, increasing the biodiversity, and we're seeing some amazing changes around here through the trees that we've planted, and then the insects comes and the birds come, and just systems and cycles just start working again that I guess we've perhaps forgotten about over the last few years, because it's so easy just to go to town and buy a solution out of a drum or a bag. It's trying to, I guess, be proactive, and I guess thinking a little bit deeper about why things happen. The thinking is more organic, but there's many names for it, whatever you want to call it, agroecology and regenerative farming, I guess is another spin-off on that. But it's just a bit more systems thinking. But we're not a certified organic farm, and I guess sustainability has been the big driver for us, and it's just making I guess conscious decisions about what products we're using and what the consequences are.
Greg and Rachel Hart have begun a process of transforming their farm with sustainability top of mind. Their goals are to produce healthy food from healthy soils and share that food and the farm with as many people as possible.
This farm was farmed since the early 1850s by the Tiffin family, and there's also some good connections back to the Māori history before that, because the 80-acre lake on the farm was a source of food for local Māori at the time. But the Tiffin family farmed it from the 1850s through until 1990, when my parents bought it and shifted up from the South Island, and my wife Rachel and I shifted back in 1996 and have been farming it so for the last 20 years.
At the moment we're at the Mangarara Eco Lodge, and this is a project we dreamt up quite a few years ago now and finally came to fruition about 18 months ago. And it's about getting people back onto the land and connected with where their food comes from. We are open to families, reunions, birthdays, smallish birthdays, and also corporates to come and experience some peace and quiet and have a bit of fun on the lake and on the farm, and feed a hen, pick up an egg, feed the pigs, milk the cows, just get their hands dirty and know what farming's all about. We have woofers who are a big help, and we also have another family on the farm very involved in looking after the lodge and the gardens and milking cows. So it's about getting people on the land to help you achieve these things, and we're very open to that. It's got to pay for itself, but we're not after the mighty dollar. We're after education and experiences and sharing where we're lucky enough to live. And just getting people aware again of that, where their food comes from and how important it is to make decisions when how powerful you are in making decisions in the supermarket about buying food. Because if you can buy food that degenerates the land, or you can buy food that regenerates the land. So that's what we're about.
The meat box is how we want to connect to a community of people with the farm, and so we're asking them to make a commitment and buy a regular monthly meat box, and because we've made the commitment to the environment here and the land, and so asking them to make a commitment will allow us to continue to farm regeneratively and also to do all the tree planting and education programs that we have running on the farm. The meat box is made up from animals all raised on the farm. There's Angus beef cattle, we've got Texel and Texel Cross lamb and Berkshire pigs. And so in the box here, there's always a bit of bacon in there, and then a mixture of lamb and beef. And we're asking people to take the whole range of cuts, because obviously, when you kill an animal, to honour that animal, you have to use all of it. And I guess a lot of online sites would want to just pick out bits and pieces, but it's around making that commitment. The people that we want to connect with our farm through the meat box system that we're using, we see them as partners to what we're doing here on the farms, because I sort of feel a lot of it is there's been a disconnect between rural and urban, and I think it is not just the responsibility of farmers to care for the land and water and everything like that, but people in town eating that food need to share some of that responsibility. And so we're looking to find initially 300 families that will buy a regular meat box off us, and by doing that, that will support us in our journey for regenerative agriculture and also the tree planting and education and other stuff that we've got going on here. The chooks are just a little enterprise that we've got going on the side at the moment. We get a lot of school groups coming visiting, and then also people staying at the lodge. You can't beat the chooks for getting up close. Kids just love picking up a hen, and it's really that interaction which makes them really special and keeps their place on the farm. They're probably one of the least sustainable creatures that we have on the farm, because we are buying grain, and so we're not producing their food on farm. But we can supplement that with a bit of milk, and they are free ranging, getting a lot of their diet from the pasture and the bugs. And the theory behind having the hens as part of the system is following behind the cattle. We talked about regenerative grazing before, and if you picture those big mobs of livestock out on the plains, there was always a flock of birds following behind, scratching through the dung, spreading the manure, picking up any bugs and parasites, adding a bit of fertiliser themselves, and with the bonus that we get some eggs out of these girls. I guess we're really excited about where the future might lead us, and we don't know where that is yet, but it's about life, and it's quite incredible, the journey we're on now, just the amount of amazing people that come through our farm almost on a daily basis now, and just the life as we watch all these trees that we've planted in the last few years grow, and and all the opportunities there are for others to perhaps spin off little enterprises and business around what we're doing on the farm. And so it's just really exciting about all the opportunities.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.